Dawn crept over the rolling hills of Pine Creek, painting the barns and silos in pale gold. The dew on the fields shimmered like glass, and the air smelled of hay, diesel, and wood smoke. But beneath that quiet beauty, something was wrong. Caleb Ross stood on his porch, mug of coffee cooling in his hand, staring down the dirt road that led to his wheat field. A brand new pickup, shiny black chrome rims still spotless, sat parked right across the entrance to his property. Its tires dug into the soft earth, and its shadow stretched across his path like a dare. He didn't have to guess whose truck it was. Only one man in town drove something that loud, that polished. And that out of place in Pine Creek? Brent Holloway, the self-proclaimed developer who'd bought up half the county with city money and a salesman's grin. Caleb set his mug down on the railing, jaw tightening. The man had been hinting for months that he wanted to buy Caleb's land for a country-themed resort. Caleb had laughed it off. But today, the laughter had dried up. Brent appeared moments later, stepping out from behind the truck in pressed jeans and boots too clean to have ever seen a plow. "Morning, neighbor," he called out, smiling wide. "Hope you don't mind me parking here." Needed a good spot for the drone shot. Caleb walked closer, squinting against the sunrise. "Drone shot?" Brent pointed to a small, buzzing drone hovering over the field, its camera glinting like an insect's eye. "Yeah, gotta get visuals for the proposal." "Investors love a good panorama," Caleb's voice came out low. "That's my field. Relax, Ross, I'm not touching your crops. Just showing folks how beautiful this land is. Think of it as free advertising." "Advertising for what?" Brent grinned wider. "For the future. I told you, this place could be big. Lodges, horseback trails, maybe even a spa. You'd make more money selling this land than you'd see in 10 harvests." Caleb glanced past him at the truck, blocking his tractor's way. "Move it." Brent leaned against the hood. "Come on, don't be like that." "I'll move it in a bit. Drone still capturing." "Now," Caleb said, the word heavy as stone. The wind stirred the wheat, whispering through the stalks. Somewhere down the road, a dog barked, then fell silent. Brent chuckled softly. "You're still living like it's 1975, man. Times change. Progress doesn't wait for anyone." Caleb's gaze didn't shift. "Neither do tractors," Brent sighed theatrically. Fine. I'll move it soon as the shot's done." But he didn't move. He folded his arms, watching his drone hover, watching Caleb's patience thin by the second. By noon, the drone was gone, but the truck remained. Caleb had checked the fuel line on his combine twice, trying to focus, but his eyes kept drifting back to the road. The black truck sat there like an insult. He called the county office. "Ma'am, this is Caleb Ross out by Old Mill Road. Someone's blocking my property access." "Do you know who it is?" the voice asked. "Yes, Brent Holloway." A pause. Paper rustled. Then, "I'm sorry, sir, but that might be a civil issue. You could call the sheriff's department." "He did," Sheriff Lane answered, his drawl tired but familiar. "Morning, Caleb. What's going on?" "Brent's blocking my road again," Lane sighed. "Again? Thought we handled this last time." "He says he's filming for investors." "Well, technically he's on public access ground till the line marker." "You sure his tires are past it?" Caleb's voice hardened. "I'm sure." "I'll swing by when I can," Lane said, but his tone held no promise of urgency. Caleb hung up, staring out at the horizon where thunderclouds were gathering. The weather report had called for rain by dusk. If he didn't get his equipment out soon, the soil would turn too soft to plow. A whole week's schedule would be lost. By late afternoon, the sky had turned the color of iron. The wind picked up, tossing dust across the yard. Brent's truck hadn't moved an inch. Caleb's wife, Nora, came to the porch, wiping her hands on her apron. "He's still there?" He nodded. She frowned. "Maybe you should let the sheriff handle it." "He's had all day," Caleb muttered. She studied him, worry in her eyes. "Don't do anything you'll regret. I'm just going to talk," he said. He pulled on his worn cap and walked down the path. Every step crunched against gravel like a drumbeat. The wind tugged at his shirt, carrying the smell of rain and something electric, tension thick enough to taste. Brent was sitting in his truck now. Sunglasses on, music playing faintly through the window, some country pop tune that didn't belong in the fields. Caleb tapped the glass. Brent rolled it down halfway, smirking. Afternoon, partner. You said you'd move. I will. Just waiting for my crew to swing by. Need another few minutes? It's been 8 hours, Brent shrugged. Good things take time. The thunder cracked above them, deep and rolling. A gust of wind pushed dust into Brent's window. He coughed and rolled it up. Caleb stared at him through the glass, rain beginning to tap on the hood. Move the truck, Brent, Caleb said again, voice steady but low. Brent shook his head slowly, almost pitying. You can't win this, Ross. I've got the paperwork started. County zoning's already reviewing this area for development. You'll be surrounded by progress soon enough. Might as well cash out before the market changes. The first drops of rain splattered across Caleb's cap. That your plan? Block me till I break? Brent smiled faintly. Not break, convince. Caleb turned without a word and walked back to the barn. Inside, the air smelled of oil and dust. His old John Deere sat silent, its green body dulled by years of work. He wiped a streak of dirt off the hood, eyes narrowing as the rain intensified outside. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the barn in silver. In that flash, the reflection of Brent's truck shone through the open door, bold, intrusive, and defiant. Caleb stood there for a long time, hand resting on the tractor's steering wheel. His father's voice echoed from memory. This land don't speak with lawyers or money. It listens to work, to action. He glanced toward the barn door, then back to the machine. The rain roared louder, hammering the tin roof. From the house, Nora watched through the kitchen window, heart thudding. She saw Caleb climb onto the tractor, the engine coughing to life in a growl that cut through the storm. Brent looked up from his phone, startled, as the headlights flared through the curtain of rain. The roar of the tractor drowned the thunder for a moment. Caleb eased it forward, tires crushing mud, eyes fixed on the obstacle ahead. The truck gleamed under the downpour, unmoved. Brent's window lowered an inch. Caleb, don't be stupid! He shouted over the rain. The tractor kept moving, slow but steady, its engine echoing off the barns. Every villager within earshot heard it, that deep rumble that meant something was about to give. Doors opened. Curtains lifted. Pine Creek was watching. The gap between man and machine closed, inch by inch, rain cascading off metal and glass. Brent's voice cracked again. Stop! You'll regret this! Caleb didn't answer. His grip tightened on the lever. The world narrowed to the sound of rain, thunder, and the unstoppable growl of the engine. And then the rain came down in sheets, drumming against the tin roofs and flooding the ruts in the dirt road. The tractor's engine thundered louder, cutting through the storm like a heartbeat. Brent's truck stood firm, headlights off, rain streaking down its polished hood. Caleb didn't speed up, didn't slow down. Every movement was deliberate, heavy, as if weighed by years of swallowed pride. The distance between the tractor and the truck closed, 30 feet, 20, 10. Through the rain, Brent's face appeared behind the windshield, pale and furious. He swung open the driver's door and jumped out, slipping in the mud. You've lost your damn mind! He shouted, voice swallowed by the storm. Caleb stopped the tractor just a few feet short of the truck. The headlights illuminated Brent like a stage light. His pressed shirt plastered to his chest, his shoes sinking in the muck. You think this is a joke? Brent yelled. You so much as scratch that truck, and I'll have you in court so fast. Caleb climbed down slowly. The rain soaked his shirt, but he didn't seem to feel it. You've been blocking my road since last night, he said, voice calm but cutting. I asked the county. I asked the sheriff. Nobody listened. So here we are, Brent laughed, a hard, brittle sound. You think this'll fix anything? You touch this truck and you're done. I'll sue you. I'll take this land. Caleb stepped closer, the mud squelching beneath his boots. The thunder rolled again, closer this time. You already tried to take it, he said quietly. Only thing left for you to take is the hint. The crowd had started to gather along the fence line, neighbors, workers, even the boys from the feed store. They stood half-hidden under umbrellas and porches, whispering. The lights from the farmhouse flickered behind Caleb, turning the scene into something almost biblical. One man standing for his ground, another defending his pride. Nora came running down the porch steps, raincoat pulled tight around her. "Caleb!" she called, voice trembling. "Please, don't make it worse." He turned slightly toward her, the tractor lights reflecting in his eyes. "It's already worse," he said, Brent's fists clenched. "You want to play the hero? Fine. But this'll cost you everything." Lightning flashed, a single blinding streak that split the sky. For a moment, both men stood frozen in that silver light. Two silhouettes locked in a storm that wasn't just weather. Then came the siren. Red and blue lights flickered down the road as Sheriff Lane's cruiser pulled up, splashing through puddles. The crowd murmured. Lane stepped out, hat pulled low against the rain. "All right," he shouted. "That's enough! Both of you!" Brent turned toward him, jabbing a finger. "Sheriff, arrest him! He threatened me! He tried to ram my truck!" Caleb didn't say a word. He stood by the tractor, mud splattered to his knees, face unreadable. Lane sighed, water dripping off his brim. "Let's slow down. Nobody's getting arrested until I know what happened." "What happened?" Brent exploded. "You can see what happened. This lunatic almost destroyed my property." Lane turned to Caleb. "That true?" Caleb met his gaze steadily. "I didn't touch it. Not yet." A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd despite the rain. Brent's face darkened. "You hear that? He's admitting he was going to." Lane held up a hand. "Brent, you've been told before not to block access roads. You're on the edge of his property," Brent sputtered. "Edge? That's a public right-of-way." "Not according to the zoning map," Lane said, pulling a folded paper from his jacket. "I checked it after last month's complaint. You're half a car length over the line." The color drained from Brent's face. "That's ridiculous. I've got money tied up in this land." "Yeah," Lane said flatly, "and you'll have more tied up in legal fees if you keep pushing." For a moment, all that could be heard was the rain hissing on metal. Then Brent's temper broke. "This whole town's a joke," he snapped. "You people act like you're defending sacred ground." "It's just dirt!" That did it. The murmuring crowd went still, a kind of silence that cut deeper than shouting. An old farmer at the fence line called out, "That dirt feeds your city, son," another voice chimed in. "And your fancy resort don't mean squat if you got no one left to work the land." Brent turned toward them, eyes blazing. "You think small. That's why you'll always stay small." Caleb wiped rain from his brow. "Maybe," he said quietly. "But we sleep better than you do." Lane stepped between them. "Enough. Brent, move your truck. Now!" Brent hesitated, looking from Caleb to the crowd to the sheriff. Then, without another word, he stomped through the mud, yanked open the door, and started the engine. The headlights flashed on, cutting through the storm. He backed the truck up, spinning the tires angrily, splattering mud across the road. Then he sped off down the hill, taillights vanishing into the rain. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The tractor engine idled softly, steam rising from its hood. The thunder rolled away into the distance. Finally, Lane turned to Caleb. "You okay?" Caleb nodded once. "I'm fine." "You sure you weren't about to do something stupid?" Caleb cracked a tired half-smile. "I thought about it." Lane sighed, adjusting his hat. "You've got half the town out here watching. You pull a stunt like that, and next thing I know, it's viral." Caleb's smile faded. "Sometimes you have to make people watch before they listen." Lane studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You made your point, but don't let pride turn into trouble." As the sheriff drove off, the crowd began to drift away, neighbors patting Caleb's shoulder, whispering things like, "Good for you," and "About time someone stood up to him." Nora walked up quietly, slipping her arm through his. "You didn't touch the truck," she said softly. He looked down at her. "Didn't need to." Thunder grumbled far off, softer now, like the storm was finally losing its fight. The fields shimmered in the lightning's afterglow, muddy, battered, but still standing. Back at the porch, Caleb sat on the steps, rain dripping from his hat brim. Nora handed him a towel, but he didn't move to dry himself. His eyes were fixed on the road, now empty. "He'll come back," she said quietly. "Yeah," Caleb murmured. But next time he'll come with papers instead of a truck. She looked at him, worry deepening. Then what? Caleb took a long breath. Then we'll see how deep these roots go. Lightning flashed again. Far to the east, illuminating the barn, its doors wide open, the tractor still idling like a heartbeat refusing to stop, somewhere beyond the hills, Brent Holloway was already on the phone, shouting over the rain, demanding that someone handle this farmer once and for all. And in Pine Creek, whispers were already spreading. About the storm, about the man who stood in front of his tractor and didn't back down, about how sometimes justice in small towns didn't come from courtrooms, it came from stubborn hearts and open land. The storm had passed, but the real fight was just beginning. The morning after the storm, Pine Creek woke to a sky washed clean. The clouds had scattered into soft gray wisps, and the world smelled of wet soil and diesel. Puddles glittered in the ruts, and every leaf seemed sharper, greener, alive. Caleb stood by the fence line with a thermos of coffee in his hand. The wheat fields swayed gently under the new light, as if the land itself was exhaling after a long night. But peace never lasted long in Pine Creek. At 9 sharp, a black SUV rolled up the dirt road, not Brent's, but something sleeker, government issued. Out stepped a man in a tailored jacket carrying a clipboard. "Morning," the man called, his voice smooth and practiced. "Caleb Ross?" Caleb nodded. "Who's asking?" "Daniel Keene, representing Holloway Developments." He flashed a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Holloway asked me to deliver a notice. It's regarding eminent domain and land rezoning. The county's considering reclassification for development purposes." Caleb's stomach tightened. "So that's his next move." Keene extended the folder. "You'll find the full proposal inside. I'd advise reviewing it with counsel." Caleb didn't take it. "You can tell Holloway I'm not selling." Keene adjusted his glasses. "This isn't a sale offer, Mr. Ross. It's a proceeding. If the county votes in favor, ownership transfer can be enforced by law." Caleb finally took the folder, more to get the man off his land than to read it. "You done?" Keene smiled again, crisp as paper. "Just doing my job. Have a good day." He walked back to the SUV, shoes spotless despite the mud. As the vehicle drove off, the sound of its tires faded into the hum of cicadas and the faint rumble of tractors from neighboring farms. Nora appeared beside him, wiping her hands on her apron. "What is it this time?" "Paperwork," Caleb muttered. "The kind that tries to make dirt worth more on paper than in the ground." He opened the folder. Legal jargon, zoning maps, signatures. Holloway's name was stamped in bold at the bottom. Nora frowned. "Can they really do that?" Caleb stared at the horizon where his father's fields stretched for miles. "Only if we let them." By afternoon, word had spread. The town's coffee shop buzzed with whispers. Brent Holloway's lawyers, the zoning board and the upcoming public hearing, Martha, who'd run the diner for 30 years, poured Caleb a cup of coffee and leaned in. "They can't just take it, can they?" "They can try," Caleb said. "You need to fight it," she said firmly. "This town's not some resort," others nodded. A few men from the mill offered to show up at the hearing. Someone mentioned calling the local paper. Pine Creek wasn't big, but word traveled fast when someone messed with one of their own. 2 days later, the hearing was set in the county hall, a brick building that smelled like dust, old wood and politics. Brent Holloway arrived first, wearing a perfect suit and his usual grin. Cameras followed him. Local news crews, drawn by the rumor of a farm dispute that had caught fire online. Someone had uploaded phone footage of the tractor confrontation. It had millions of views. Caleb entered quietly, hat in hand, clothes plain but pressed. He wasn't there to perform. He was there to be heard, the room filled with townsfolk, farmers, store owners, school teachers. Even Sheriff Lane leaned against the wall at the back, arms folded. At the front, the county board sat like a jury behind long desks. The chairwoman, Ms. Duval, cleared her throat. "We're here to discuss the rezoning proposal for Parcel 17B, submitted by Holloway Developments." Brent rose, buttoning his jacket. "Thank you, Madam Chair. I stand before you not as an outsider, but as someone who believes in progress." Pine Creek deserves opportunity. Hotels, business, jobs. My company can bring all that. But to do it, we need access to this particular stretch of land. He gestured toward Caleb without looking at him. One man's refusal shouldn't hold back an entire community. A murmur spread through the crowd, some skeptical, some uncertain. Then Caleb stood. "Madam Chair, if I may," Ms. Duval nodded. "Go ahead, Mr. Ross." He stepped forward, unfolding a small piece of paper. His voice wasn't loud, but every word carried weight. "This land's been worked by my family for 3 generations. My grandfather plowed it by hand. My father paid off the note by hauling grain through 2 droughts. We buried him up by the oak tree on the North Ridge. Every inch of this soil has a name, a memory, a story." He paused, eyes moving across the board members. "You call it undeveloped. I call it alive." Brent chuckled softly from his seat. "That's poetic, Ross, but emotions don't build infrastructure." Caleb looked at him, calm as stone. "Neither does greed." A low hum rippled through the audience. Caleb turned back to the board. "You want to build hotels? Go ahead, but not here. This land feeds people. And if you turn it into a playground, you take food off tables. That's not progress. That's pride disguised as vision." The chairwoman tapped her pen. "Mr. Holloway, care to respond?" Brent stood again, smooth and confident. "With respect, Mr. Ross doesn't understand scale. This isn't about him. It's about Pine Creek's future. We've already got investors lined up, and we're offering buyouts well above market value. Everyone wins. Everyone but the land," Caleb said quietly. Brent smiled thinly. "The land doesn't vote." "Maybe not," Caleb said, turning toward the crowd. "But the people who live on it do." That broke the silence. Applause erupted, hesitant at first, then louder. Ms. Duval banged her gavel for order, but the tide had already turned. When it came time for public comment, nearly every speaker sided with Caleb. Martha from the diner, the mill workers, even a local teacher who said her students had started drawing tractors instead of hotels since the video went viral. Brent sat stiffly, his smile fading inch by inch. Finally, Ms. Duval spoke. "The board will deliberate." She paused, glancing at the crowd. "But I'll say this. Progress means nothing if it forgets its roots." The room erupted in applause again. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the courthouse steps in amber light. Brent pushed past reporters, jaw tight. Caleb stood off to the side, hat in hand, watching him. "You think you won?" Brent hissed. "This isn't over." Caleb met his gaze. "It never is." "Not for people like you," Brent sneered. "You got lucky. The internet loves a sob story. But next quarter, when the investors pull out, I'll buy the land cheap and you'll come crawling." Caleb smiled faintly. "You don't understand this place, Brent. You can buy land." "You can't buy belonging." Brent started to speak, but stopped. The cameras were on them again. He turned sharply and walked away, his expensive shoes clicking against the courthouse stone. Caleb looked out toward the horizon, the fields, the trees, the clouds moving slow and sure. Sheriff Lane joined him, hands in pockets. "Didn't think you'd turn into a local hero," Caleb chuckled. "Didn't plan to." "Funny thing," Lane said, nodding toward the distant hills. "Sometimes doing the right thing makes better headlines than all the noise." Caleb tipped his hat. "I don't care about headlines. I just want to work my land," Lane smiled. "Then get back to it. Rain's coming again tomorrow." As the sheriff walked off, Nora came up beside Caleb, slipping her hand into his. "What happens now?" she asked softly. He looked toward the fields, glowing gold in the fading light. "Same as always," he said. "We plant, we work, we wait. The rest'll take care of itself." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of wheat and rain. Somewhere, a tractor rumbled to life, steady, patient, and unbroken, because in Pine Creek, storms came and went. But roots, real roots, didn't move.